It's a ram. It's a lion. It's a snake. It's the Chimera. Hello everyone, Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends. We're here on the free to pause account, but we'll be talking about the Chimera and gonna do a little bit of a how-to guide on ways to tackle the Chimera. Now, I'm going to talk to you about a lot of things that I actually cannot do on this account. Part of the reason I chose to do it this way is I could certainly show you my endgame account where I'm doing the top chest on Ultra Nightmare, but that's not going to help you guys progress. And one of the things I think will be helpful to you guys to progress is to see how little of the stuff that I'm going to talk about here I can actually do with my account. And I'm still able to put up chests on Brutal, on Hard, on Normal, and I mean, easy was actually way too easy for this. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about ways you can push your account, getting good chests for Chimera, ways you can certainly focus on some of the trials, and some of the buffs, debuffs, things you probably should be looking for that are going to help you make your Chimera run better and smoother. First of all, one of the important things to notice about the Chimera is that Chimera is much like the regular clan boss. You only get double chests if your clan manages to kill the Chimera. So pay attention to where your clan is doing with the Chimera, whether or not you're going to be killing the Chimera or not, and try to focus on the heads that you're actually working on. As you can see here, we're getting close to Nightmare in this one here. In fact, I'm fairly sure we will be downing Nightmare, Brutal, Hard, and Normal. So I don't want to be doing easy if I can avoid it, unless I'm personally killing easy. If I'm personally killing easy, I should be doing Normal or Hard. Another thing to keep in mind is the chests themselves. So the highest chest you can earn on easy is the Warrior chest. The highest chest you can earn on Normal is the Knight chest. But the Warrior chest is the next step down. And the Hard chest, the Knight chest, is the next step down, and the Warrior chest is 2 steps down. And then finally on Brutal, the Knight chest is the lowest chest here. So if I do the lowest chest on Brutal, where I'm doing 7 to 12 million damage, that is going to actually get me more Chimera Clash points than doing Normal in most cases, because I need to do, less. Well, I guess it's about the same overall damage, but the 5 times multiplier is going to make the points, 2.5 times better for Chimera Clash. But also, if they're downing Brutal and not downing Normal, I'm better off getting this bottom chest on Brutal than I am getting the top chest on Normal. So pay attention to where your clan is and what chest you should be doing, and don't be afraid to push. And if you don't get the top chest, it's fine. You're better off going for 2 different levels of Chimera and getting multiple different chests that way, because that way you get 4 total chests than just 1 slightly better chest. And for an example here, on Hard, I did this run here with this team here for 17 million. It did pretty decent. It wasn't the best, it wasn't the worst, and 17 million is not the top chest here. But I get the Knight chest, which is the top chest I would have gotten on Normal, and we're going to down Hard as a clan most likely, so I'm not worried about missing the double chest, where I might, I guess, on Normal. I don't know. It probably depends on where we're going with these clan teams or not. So I'm probably going to run a team, for example, here on Normal, but I honestly would probably consider running one on Brutal as well, because again, I might get a much better overall clash score on Brutal if I can put together enough points. So I recommend reading over the boss guide a little bit. I do have a video where I talk about some of this stuff, and there have been a few minor changes to how the Chimera works. Specifically, the ram head now mitigates some of the reflect damage if you can put fear or true fear up on the boss, as well as he gets less turn meter from missing a turn. And then the lion form hits significantly harder, making the lion form a little more dangerous than it used to be. But that's really the only major changes. So check that video out above if you get a chance. And if you don't, that's fine. You can certainly read this yourself. It's mostly me reading over some of this stuff and talking about the trials. A lot of it was before we actually had all of this stuff ready to go. The trials are certainly another thing to consider. For your first couple of teams, you're looking to basically build a champion or team to do enough damage to get a good chest. And doing the trials is optional. As you move further and further up, you want to start focusing on maybe doing some trials as you go, because some of them are simple, like doing damage while fear and true fear. Well, early on, you're going to struggle to do that. But if you get a Lydia, Lydia can give you that fear and true fear fairly easy on the Ram form. Chimera here, you've got a chance to get weaken and increase crit rate and crit damage. As you build your roster, you'll be able to get some of these things because they'll require specific buffs and or specific debuffs to be able to land or beat some of these trials. And they're going to be a little different and a little more difficult depending on the level of your roster. Absorb damage using shield buffs is hard if you don't have a really good shield champion, for example. Damage with a single skill while it's under 4 or more debuffs. Well, if you can't get 4 more debuffs up, that's going to be harder for you. If you can get 4 more debuffs up, that's going to become easier for you. Stuff like that. Damage a Chimera while under a Leech. Leech is a very good ability to bring versus this stuff. Block active skills. If you don't have block active skills, that's a tough one to deal with. But again, Lydia can be a huge MVP here in the Chimera as well. Looking at the various buffs and the debuffs here, we're going to talk about some of the debuffs that can be very important and very helpful against the boss. Specifically, the control ones, such as your stuns, your sleeps, outside of fear, are not going to be useful against the boss. This is a boss. That's just generally how it works. Fear is useful against the ram head, so having a champion that has a chance to land fear, or more importantly, one that can do it on their A1, can be a huge way to control the ram head. So bringing somebody like a Lydia who has fear on the A1 can be very, very helpful. Block buffs can be very good. This boss does buff themselves in their main form. The ultimate form per se will put increased speed up there. So the ability to block that increased speed can be very helpful. Other forms can often steal buffs or put buffs on themselves as well. So block buffs can be very, very critical to put up regularly. So that's an important one. Decrease attack. Well, all the forms are doing damage based on attack, so decrease attack can help mitigate some of that damage. That's very good. Decrease defense helps you do additional damage. Decrease speed. This is one of the few bosses where decreased speed is amazing for. One of the tricks with Chimera is you want to take as many turns as possible while the Chimera takes as few turns as possible, because you are only limited by the overall 1,500 turn limit, which is very hard to hit in Chimera. Otherwise, you have a fixed amount of Chimera turns to take before the Chimera is done. So the Chimera will take a total of 65 turns, and then Chimera flies off. So decreased speed gives you a 15 to 30% basically more time to do damage against the boss, making decreased speed one of the best debuffs you can land against this boss here. Decrease accuracy doesn't suck. If you're trying to resist things and you have decreased accuracy, it's not bad. I wouldn't bring it specifically for anything other than maybe a trial that requires decreased accuracy, if there is one. Same with decreased crit rate or decreased crit damage. They're not bad, but the boss is not doing a ton of crit rate and crit damage stuff. Block active skills is really huge because the Viper form can be controlled with block active skills. Basically, if you can get block active skills on the Viper form, they will not transfer all the debuffs they have to you, stun you, and instead will simply do their A1, which is significantly less menacing and less likely to kill somebody. So being able to do block active skills and get it up and keep it up against the Viper form is a very, very good key thing to be able to do. Bombs, it's one way to do damage, probably not the best way to do damage against the boss. You could certainly bring a bomb champion if you wanted to, as long as they can ignite the bombs. So somebody like the Rat would certainly be able to do it, or a Gaius the Gleeful would certainly be another option for you, because he can ignite the bombs as well. But I don't think bombs are a great way to go against this boss, but you never know. Weaken, again, we talked about ways to increase damage. Weaken is another great way to increase damage, just as decreased defense. You cannot block its revive, so that's not going to be helpful. You cannot provoke it. Don't worry about dazed. You can't decapitate it. Hex is really not particularly useful against this boss. Hex can be useful if there's other effects that Hex causes for certain champions, but you don't get the extra damage spread of Hex because there's no other champions to hit other than the boss, so Hex doesn't really do any additional damage. Leech is great. Leech basically gives you free healing whenever you're doing damage against the boss. It's particularly good for mitigating the Ram Swarm's reflect damage. It is a great way, plus with Life Drinker, to be able to really smack that boss and not get yourself killed, particularly with somebody like a Newt, for example, where you might have that life drinker as well. Leech is a great debuff. It also helps with some of the trials, so very good to get Leech up if you can do it. HP Burn's not horrible. It's another debuff. There's a couple of trials involving HP Burn, but it's also not going to be the most damage you're going to do to the boss, because it's basically going to be a very, very small hit of damage to it, and that's it. As we mentioned, Fear and True Fear, good way to control the Ram. The Ram form can miss a turn, which means they don't do some of their big nukes if they miss it because of fear. And on top of that, if they are feared, the reflect damage that the Ram does is not as effective. So this is a good way to mitigate some of that as well. Poison sensitivity is only going to be really good if you're using poisons for damage. It is, however, effective for some of the trials do require poison sensitivity. So from that end, if you're using poisons for damage, poison sensitivity is a good way to increase that damage, but probably not the best debuff overall. You cannot block the passive skills, unfortunately. You can block active skills, though. You cannot petrify them. I don't think Pain Leak really does much against the bosses. I'm not sure. They might even be immune to it. If you do, it's a debuff. It does a little extra damage, but it's not going to be that great. Heal reduction, they don't heal, so heal reduction doesn't do anything other than any bonuses you might get, such as a Venom Mage who has damage reduction based off of the enemy having heal reduction. Decreased resistance could be good. It means you might be able to sacrifice some accuracy on some champions. And there's some trials that can definitely play off of decreased resistance as well. Probably not a high priority buff. Smite is huge. Smite is a good way to do damage against this boss. It is difficult to sometimes get on, because if you get it on every 5th turn, what happens is basically you get it on, and then when they transform, they don't actually get the smite damage. So it's not particularly exciting. Iron Brand's only an Iron Twins thing. You can't sheep them. We talked about poisons doing some damage. You cannot enfeeble the boss. I don't think you can seal the boss. Berserk, I think the boss is immune to Berserk. Otherwise, you don't necessarily want them doing a bunch of damage. Necrosis is something you have to deal with against the boss, so be aware against the Viper form. You will get these Necrosis stacks on you, which are basically heavy damage poisons that you cannot remove until you revive everybody. Deathbrand's not going to help you, and Snare's not going to help you. Fatigue is probably not going to help you as well. So that's kind of some of the debuffs that you're focused on. Honestly, making sure your decreased defense, making sure your weaken is up, making sure you bring some leech. Those are your top 3. And then block buffs, and then fear, and then block passive skills, or block active skills, I should say. Very, very helpful against this boss. Now, taking a look at the buffs, block debuffs is great. However, keep in mind this boss can strip buffs and get benefits from stripping buffs. So in the case of any buffs you are using, I highly, highly recommend, if you can do it, put your buffers in 9-piece protection, or at least as much protection as you can, or have a debuffer who brings a protected buff in the first place, like a Brogni's shield is protected, for example. The ability to protect these buffs and debuffs can be huge in making the swing between dying to this boss just nuking you and stealing everything, or you living and being able to easily survive a particular part of the boss. So block debuffs, very, very good. Increase attack, helpful to add some additional attack, not a huge priority. Increase defense will mitigate some damage, not a huge priority, but not bad. Increase speed, just like decreased speed is viable against the boss. Increased speed is one of the best buffs you can have on your team to get your team's turn meter ticking faster and taking more turns. Increased accuracy could be helpful, and there's actually a couple of trials that's revolved around. Same with increased crit rate and increased crit damage. I wouldn't rely on increased crit rate specifically unless the team is designed to always have that up. Otherwise, increased crit damage is always helpful for the nukers you're going to bring. Shields are not bad. One of the forms does ignore shields occasionally, so shields are not going to be the end-all be-all for damage, but shields are a good way to keep yourself alive and give yourself some extra healing as well. Revive on death, also very helpful as well. It's nice to be able to revive if you're going to die, and this is not a one you have to worry about getting stolen, because if it steals revive on death, you don't care because you can't technically kill the boss. Ally protection could be helpful to mitigate some damage. I don't think that's as helpful as other things in this boss. But that said, ally protection can be a very useful way to make sure that your squishiest of champions don't die in certain situations. So ally protect, not horrible. Unkillable, as well as the block damage, can be very helpful against the ram form. So unkillable can actually be very, very helpful for you. Reflect damage, never a great buff, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. Honestly, I kind of wish that reflect damage would have helped against the ram a little bit more. Maybe somebody has reflect damage up, they don't get damage reflected back to them because they basically reflect it back to the ram again. That would be good. That would have given reflect damage a good spot to use it. Right now, reflect damage is honestly one of the worst buffs in the game. It's just not very useful. It sucks when you're going against it because you're doing much more damage against the enemies than they do against you. Because if you did the amount of damage that you do to the enemy, if you took that, they would be one-shotting your teams. And that's just not fun and not enjoyable. Veil, not horrible. Perfect Veil is certainly better because you mitigate some damage from area effect skills. Can be helpful if you have a Rector Draft to keep you healed as well. Veil, very good buff overall. Not the best buff in the world because it's not there's nothing special about Veil with this particular champion and this particular boss, but Veil can help protect champions that might be a little squishier or mitigate some of the AoE damage, and those are two useful uses of Veil anyway. Counterattack is fine, other than you have to make sure that counterattack does not get stolen by the boss, because if counterattack gets stolen by the boss, you are dead. There is a specific situation the Viper can steal these buffs, so that's a good place to be careful. Strengthen, another way to mitigate damage, very, very helpful. Block damage, mitigating some damage, helpful. If you can get Poison Cloud, there's a champion that does give Poison Cloud to a single champion. It's not a horrible thing. It means you're going to get weak hit a lot, which means you're going to survive well, so that's not too bad. Stone Skin is not horrible, but Stone Skin you're probably going to outrun as quickly as possible. It's only going to help you for the first turn or two to survive into the first turn or two. If that's actually enough to help you do enough damage to get in and get out and be done, then Stone Skin's not bad. But it's probably not what you're going to be building champions for Chimera specifically. Intercept is certainly worth talking about because Intercept is part of your pinpoint stacks, as well as some champions can put Intercept on other champions. Intercept is viable because this boss does put out fears, stuns, petrifications, and things Intercept can help with. So Intercept can be a very good buff to have, certainly not a major requirement, but it is helpful. And on that foot as well, being able to cleanse debuffs, very, very critical thing to be able to do against the boss. So as I mentioned, we're going to run this team here. This is the team I ran against the Hard. I'm looking to maybe do 10 million damage here against Brutal. And this team brings direct damage with Tholen, direct damage with Alice. I've got a chance to get Brimstone with 3 different champions at this particular time. I've got some healing to keep my team alive. I've got a Reviver to revive my team. I've got 2 different cleansers. I've got decreased defense. I've got block buffs. And I have some weaken available on my Tholen as well. So with all of those things combined, this team brings some of the things I would like to bring against this boss. I'm still not great on the affinity, and I'm still not great on having things like fear or the ability to lock out champions. This is where Lydia would be a game changer on this account, and Lydia would absolutely go into this team in place of either Ugo or possibly Alice, or possibly Tholen, depending on the affinity. And that would actually help me do more damage overall because it would help me hit more trials and it would help me control the ram form better. Plus I would have decreased defense and weaken on a single skill with the increased speed and the strengthen as well for Lydia. Very, very helpful overall. But that's the thing that I want to focus on. As I mentioned, I talked about a bunch of things that are really, really good against Chimera. And you notice there's more things than you can probably bring on most teams. Mythicals help a ton. That is why this is an endgame boss further on down. But there is no reason that you can't put together a team that can get a chest on normal. And honestly, most accounts probably can get a chest. Well, you can always get a chest on easy. That should be really easy for you. Getting that chest on normal shouldn't be a problem with an account that is even mildly progressed. And getting a chest on hard is not out of the realm of possibility once you've got your account sort of fleshed out. Now, it's not going to be these specific champions. This is not, hey, look at this team. This team is amazing. This is just kind of the team I have built and a team I know works well enough to possibly get the damage numbers I am targeting. Doesn't mean it's the best. Doesn't mean it's a team I would recommend for everyone to build. You know, look at your account, look at the champions you have. Ideally, you're going to want 6-star champions. Ideally, you're going to want champions that have some souls because souls can be helpful for mitigating damage as well as doing additional damage. And they bring a bunch of extra stats, which can be very helpful. Plus, souls are how you get things like Brimstone, so that can be very helpful as well. So overall, just dealing with souls, dealing with the champions that make sense given your current roster, you know, put together a team and give it a try And so I'm going to make the run, and I'm going to pop in here and there and give you a little bit of tips as we go with things that are helpful and things I'm going to pay attention to at certain times during the fight. Now, here's one of the things I do want to point out is that some of these champions you're going to want to manual stuff on. And early on, manualing is going to be more important than not, because you're not going to be able to fully automate some of these teams, just because there are going to be times when you're going to want to make decisions based on what you're going on with your team. Now, for Syl, I don't want her to use this A2 at all. So she's here to heal, but also to land some decreased speed. Now, you can't drop this guy's turn meter, but you can occasionally get decreased speed, which doesn't suck. Mithrala gives me some increased defense and increased attack, can be very helpful. We'll get some block buffs, which will actually prevent the increased speed that happens early on. Tholen, I want to build up his attack as quickly as possible, so we're going to do his decreased attack thing right here. And then with Alice, I'm probably never going to use her A2 because it does okay damage, but honestly, she does more damage with this hit here because it ignores a bunch of defense, or her A1, which is a triple hitter once he has a skill on cooldown. Very, very helpful as well. And then, you know, I just have to hope that Syl lands a decreased speed at some point in time. Now, I want to save my cleanse, so I'm actually going to get some poisons out with Mithrala just to add a little bit of extra damage. I wouldn't mind a leech, so I'm going to attack with the A1 with Ugo as well. As you can see, I'm saving some of my heals, knowing that I might need them a bit later. Now with Tholen, I could A1 and hope I land a weaken, because if I land a weaken, he'll get an extra turn. So I'm actually going to give that a try. And it didn't work. So that's unfortunate. He did have increased attack on him when I did that, so that made some sense. His A3 otherwise will actually add increase attack to him as well automatically. So because I didn't need to actually get it powered up, that's fine. So finally, I am worried about people dying. So I'm going to put up a shield and strengthen here, and we'll even get a little bit of healing right here as well. So again, this is where cleanse can be helpful. And you see Tholen got an extra turn because I did land that weaken. And as I mentioned, I do want to get his attack up pretty regularly. So we are going to do that. That's going to actually help mitigate some of the damage the boss does as well, which is very, very helpful. You know, maybe should have saved the cleanse of Mithrala to be able to cleanse these things, but again, I don't necessarily mind some of these A1s attacking here as well, especially for Syl. I don't have anybody to revive, so an A1 provoke isn't the worst thing to happen with those champions with where my cooldowns are at the moment. And hey, we've got a leech up here as well. We're on turn 4. Going to do Tholen's A2. And he got an extra hit with that A1 as well, which landed a weaken, so he gets an extra turn as well. This is where Tholen is just so good. He's just taking extra turns, doing a bunch of extra damage. It's just so good. You know, so now I've got decreased speed here. So Mithrala, I could bring the increased attack. Let's do the cleanse with the shield. No, let's bring the increased attack and increased defense because I want to prepare for the ram form. Now that we're on turn count 5, but sometimes you need to pay attention as early as turn count 4. And that's also the same for 14 and 24, and very specifically on 24 and 54, you're going to want to pay attention to what skills you're going to be doing. Basically the next turn, the boss is going to change into one of their forms, cleanse themselves of all buffs and debuffs, and then immediately take the first turn of their new skill form. So in the case of the Viper, that can be bad, and we'll talk about that later. But in this particular case, it's going to be the Ram form. So I'm going to want to try to protect the champion who's going to be my Ram target, which in my opinion is going to be Ugo, because that's the person with the lowest crit damage, and that's going to be very helpful as well. That also does bring up a point about the Ram form that I did actually forget to talk about. The Ram form will try to target and try to kill the champion with the lowest crit damage on your team. So you want to make sure that the champion with the lowest crit damage is not your only reviver, because if the Ram kills your only reviver, that is effectively the end of your run, because you cannot revive and pick up back and keep going. So you want to make sure that, like in this case, I want to make sure Syl is not the lowest crit damage on the squad. And if she is, put a crit damage amulet on her, you know, especially if you've got a protection amulet for a champion like an Elva, for example. I've got my Elva with a crit damage amulet because I want to make sure that she didn't have the lowest crit damage and somebody else is targeted for the duel against the boss. So we're doing pretty good here. We landed the decreased speed. Syl's going to get some extra turns because that's what she does. Now, as I mentioned, that this guy is going to transform and shed all of his debuffs. So I want to save my decreased defense and my block buffs for the next form. So I'm just going to A1, and this is where manualing can be very, very helpful. Now that the Ram has just changed forms, well, okay, I didn't get enough protection on my Ugo to be able to keep her alive, and that's fine. So she's dead, and I don't have to worry about the duel. And that's where the Reviver comes in and picks her right back up, and that's actually a very good way to deal with the duel. Now, versus this Ram form, because I don't have any fear, you'll see I'm hurting myself as I'm doing some of these damaging attacks on these champions. So I want to be very careful which of these attacks I do, and I may just want to be A1ing an awful lot on these champions. This is where shield buffs are going to be helpful to keep people alive, because they are going to help, keep these people alive when they're being attacked. Now, that would have been maybe helpful to have kept that shield off so that I could have cleansed all these icky controls and stuff like that. But, I made a bad choice, so it probably wasn't the best choice out there. I don't have Leech up here, so I do not want to do the big hit for Alice, so I'm just going to A1. Now, she has some level of healing, and of course she has the shield and the strengthen buff, so that does mitigate some of the damage. I did just get a Leech up on the boss though, so that is going to be very, very helpful. This is also where things like poisons can be very, very helpful against the boss. And because I don't want to do too much damage, I'm actually not going to use decreased defense against the boss, because I don't want to have the defense decreased so that these champions are killing themselves by doing increased damage against some of these champions as well. So don't have the Leech anymore, very unfortunate, but we're not doing too much damage here. Hey, we got the cleanse up at the right time. That's going to be very helpful. I'll save that heal for a little bit later. And just need Syl to take a turn so that we can get that revival back up. Syl's revival is still not back up yet. Very unfortunate. We got Brimstone up. Not too bad. Let's get increased attack and increased defense up, because that will just help in general. And yeah, so Tholin's down. That's definitely not ideal, but at least I've got Alice up here. We got Brimstone up doing some chunks of damage. And hey, we're doing okay with this run. It's not ideal, but not every run's going to be ideal. We got some poisons up. Just need Syl to take an extra turn right here. No. So we'll get Tholin back up in just a minute. And from there on, hopefully he should mostly remain upright, which will help us against this boss. But as you can see, I keep on using these cleanses. That's why cleansing can be super important. That's where Mithrala brings a lot of benefits to this team. In addition to the shield, which gives you some extra tankiness, and the strength that gives you extra tankiness, and the increased defense that gives you extra tankiness, and the increased attack, which gives you extra damage, plus the extra buffs that give you ability to get trials done, which, by the way, you can check on the various forms where you are with the trials if you ever need to. Just pick Tholin back up here, and we're in good shape. So mostly just since there's nothing I'm super worried about versus the line boss as well, we're just going to keep on going from here, and I'll probably just check in when we converts into the lion, and we'll take a look and see where some of the damage is there. All right, so we're back here on the Ram form, and of course I'm going to continue to poke Tholin and make sure I can get his attack down as well as Tholin's attack up. And for the most part, we're just going to try to stay alive here. This boss, if you cleanse, this is one of the places where cleansing can be dangerous. If you cleanse against this boss, he will instantly attack anybody he has that little hunter's mark thing on. So the hunter's gaze right here. So if you cleanse that, he will instantly attack them with that A1 and can actually do a significant amount of damage. So getting decreased attack up can be very, very helpful against this boss to prevent you from actually being nuked. It also means you want to be very, very understanding and understated when you deal with a cleanse. Now, I may do a cleanse now just because with weaken and the other stuff, that could be problematic as well, but I may want to be careful where I do the cleanse to make sure that I've gotten some level of healing with him as well. Now, Syl taking a turn is great because she's going to heal herself here, get a little extra healing with that attack as well. And then if I, good question, does this ignore shields? It does not ignore shields. So the A1 does not ignore shields. So if I'm going to cleanse and put up a big shield, you see, didn't ignore the shield there, but I lost Syl anyway. So that was probably not the best move to do. So that may actually ruin the run. We'll certainly see if we can keep going, but now I don't have any healing anymore. So you know what? I'm going to start this back up, and I'm going to get all the way back to where we're at right now and see if I can get that far. And then we'll resume this and keep on going. All right, so as you can see, we've done this run again, and I've actually done much better damage this time around for some reason. So Syl is still the target of the hunt. I am going to, you know what? She's got a lot more HP this time, so I'm going to preemptively cleanse this, give her the shield now, and then she's not going to die as quickly. So that will be very helpful. Someone will eventually get that hunt put back on them again because that's just the way that works. But if I can keep everybody mostly healed, then Syl should stay alive for this particular run, which will be overall very, very helpful. And of course, she's still got smacked here. Well, I'm not going to do another cleanse for a little while until she gets more healing. Hopefully what'll happen is she'll get an extra turn or two. Plus, if I can decrease his attack just a little bit with Tholen as well, maybe she'll be just a little less potent. Extra turn would be great. Thank you very much. So yeah, extra turn, extra healing, overall helpful. And yeah, as long as I'm not triggering that attack, Syl probably will live through this particular round, which will be good. So we're just going to, you know, ride the edge just a little bit. If I can get Ugo's heal, that might be enough healing to be able to make it work. You know, but if not, that's fine. And of course, we're landing, you know, weaken with Tholen, so that's great. By the way, one of the reasons you want to land weaken with Tholen is I've got him with Nature's Wrath. So once I land that, I think 3 or 4 times, I get a bunch of extra damage from Nature's Wrath as well. So from that perspective, that is very helpful as well. We are certainly skating the edge with Syl here. Leech would be great. Perfect. We got some Leech here. So she'll just hit that here, do some extra healing with Leech, and get an extra turn. If I can get a War Master proc, look at that. And she naturally got rid of the buff instead of cleansing it, which is very, very helpful in overall keeping her alive. And so now that she doesn't have that buff on, I'm going to use Mithrala to cleanse here because I'm pretty sure Mithrala can take the hit. And if she can't, I still have my Reviver in Syl. So we've actually managed to get here. And again, I was looking for what, 9.5 million. So, and there down goes Syl. That's unfortunate. But I've now hit my goal. So if I, you know, don't do much further on in Chimera, I at least still hit the goal I set, and I've got the chest I was really worried about with Chimera. So that's very, very helpful as well. So let's see if I can get to the Viper form, and if we can, I'll give you some tips of what happens getting to the Viper form. If not, I do have to run some Chimera on my main, so I will hop over to my main and show you some of the problems with the Viper form as well. All right, so unfortunately we have lost my Alice as well, although we're still stacking some decent damage. Probably not going to get to the next chest on this particular difficulty, which is fine. We will be getting to the Viper form, and that's probably going to absolutely wreck us, but we can certainly see, I mean, Ugo can do a miracle revive. There's an outside opportunity. We'll see if that's going to happen. But basically, now that we are close to turn 25, because after turn 25, he changes into Viper form, we are going to be very careful about what buffs we have out here. Very specifically, I never want this form to ever be able to steal a block debuffs. So right now, the only buffs that I had on there, you see he stole my increased attack that I had in my Tholen, but not anything else here. Now, unfortunately, I made a big mistake with using Ugo's Cleanse because I thought I had an extra turn. I did not. Ugo's Cleanse is going to be very useful because on the second round this guy takes a turn, he will not only activate a bunch of these poisons, and in fact, I don't have anything else, so we're probably just going to flat out die. We're going to not only get all these poisons activated, which is going to be, you know, annoying, and look at that, here we go, here we die, but we would have actually had a bunch of stuff thrown back at us as well. Now, we have a bunch of resistance with Mithrala, so we're basically going to be living with Mithrala until Mithrala dies over here. But if we had had debuffs land on us, he will land on this particular ability here. He will place not only Hex, but heal reduction. So I like to keep Ugo's Cleanse for that second round, because Ugo will always cleanse the heal reduction as well as possibly something else. And then, of course, you'll get a, you know, Mithrala's Cleanse can keep some of the poisons cleansed away in the first place as well. So what I should have done is tried to keep Mithrala's Cleanse available and not had it going into this form, and then had Ugo Cleanse available and the heal available for the second time after this takes the second turn. So I'll survive the first turn having cleansed most of the debuffs. I'll get the second turn around, and then Ugo cleanses the block healing, and then I can heal again for most of the rest of this fight. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen, so at this point in time, I'm just going to do as much damage as I can to this boss, and there we go. So there is my 12.25 million. If we look at the chest rewards right here, I almost got to the next chest up, but again, the next chest up is still a knight's chest. So I got the best chest that I can get on this difficulty. Well, not the best chest I can get on this difficulty, but I got a chest on this difficulty. It feels like I'm not going to be able to get to the 25.6 million, which is fine. And this is still a decent amount of Chimera Clash points. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to run. Your count may be better, may be worse, but those are some tips, especially for early on ways to do Chimera and get the most out of your keys. So guys, I realize this was an awful lot to digest, and I didn't necessarily have a great example of a team on my free-to-play, but that was the point, to show you that you don't need a great team to get a reward in Chimera. And honestly, getting any reward gets you shots at getting Embrys. Embrys is absolutely amazing. He is the fragment summon mythical right here. As you can see, I have 57 fragments towards this dude already on my free-to-play account, about 200 days in. Now, that means I'm still behind getting him as I've got him on my main, but my main was getting the top chest regularly, where I'm guaranteed to get fragments for him. The higher up the chest you get, the better chance or guaranteed chance you have of getting fragments, let alone getting 2 fragments for him per chest. So eventually you can average 5 to 10 fragments, well, not 5 to 10. You can average at least 5 fragments for the most part every week once you get high enough. At the moment, I'm getting 2 to 3 a week. It's just kind of where I'm at with this account, and that's fine. I'm making progress towards him. I'm slowly but surely pushing myself up, and I'm getting some of the good rewards from those Hydra chests, including clan gold, which is great, including, you know, gems for the relics that I have, and relic crafting materials, because even the low-level relics can help transform your account, particularly the ones that help you with things like crit damage, turn meter, healing, and even things that give you the ability to survive if you're trying to make a solo level champion. So, hey, I appreciate you guys making it to the end of this video. You guys are absolutely amazing. Much love to all you guys. Hit that like button and hit that subscribe button if you found this interesting, entertaining, and want to see more content like this. You know, let me know what you think about Chimera. Let me know some of the teams that you are running. Let me know where some of your pain points are. And if there's certain things you did not understand because maybe I didn't explain them well, or maybe I did and I can just re-explain them. You know, if I have to make a follow-up video to this, I certainly will, and I can certainly make a more endgame focused for what I do for my main teams on my main account. I've certainly shown videos on those before, but you know what? If you guys haven't seen it recently, maybe I can talk to you about what I'm currently running with my account in Chimera. So appreciate you guys for hanging around. Appreciate all the love, all the support. You are one of the best communities in Raid Shadow Legends. Thank you very much. You have a wonderful, wonderful day. And until the next video, I am Bront CatHerder.